What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. Just wanted to talk to you guys about something that really bothers me. And I just got back from the range. I was shooting my 300 Win Mag at 1,000 yards today, and I was thinking on the way home about some of the BS that's out there on the internet, on all these discussion forums, long-range shooting forums, and different types of firearms forums. So I wanted to make this video to kind of bust this myth that I see a lot of people regurgitating on firearms forums on the internet, okay? And that's the barrel life estimates, okay? If any of you guys out there have ever spent any time on gun forums on the internet, especially long-range shooting or long-range hunting forums, you'll see people throw out these numbers for how long your barrel will last you, okay? And they'll throw out, typically for a Magnum cartridge like this 300 Win Mag, they'll usually say, 1,000 to 3,000 rounds max, but I usually hear 1,000 to 2,000 rounds, and then your barrel gets burned out and your groups start to open up and you have to either recut your throat, or you have to set the barrel back a little bit, or you have to get a whole new barrel, okay? Now, I want to just share my experience because I don't know where people get these numbers from, like, after 1,000 rounds, your barrel's going to burn out, I don't know where these numbers come from, what kind of scientific testing these people did to come up with these numbers. And what's really sad is that, on a lot of these forums, it's just kind of like one person will say something and then everybody will just chime in and agree with it. They'll just say, yeah, I agree with that guy. Yeah, if you have a 300 Win Mag, your barrel life is only going to be 1,000 or 2,000 rounds max. And then after that, your groups are going to be terrible. You're going to have to rebarrel your rifle or, set the barrel back. And there's no scientific evidence for these numbers. I mean, where do these people get these numbers that, 1,000 rounds and your rifle's going to start shooting like garbage? Where did these numbers come from, and it really pisses me off, because what happens is if you have a newbie shooter, and a lot of newbies go on those firearms forums, because they don't know much about rifles, about long-range shooting, so they go on these forums to learn, and that's one of the reasons why I used to frequent those forums, because I was new to long-range shooting. This is going back, 10 years ago. I would frequent those forums and I would try to absorb information from people that, spend a lot of time shooting long range, because at the time I had zero experience shooting beyond 300 yards. And I wanted to soak up as much information as possible. And one of the things I would always see is, your barrel life on a Magnum cartridge, whether it's, 300 Win Mag, 7mm Rem Mag, 338 Lapua, those types of cartridges, you would always see the so-called experts saying, after 1,000 rounds, your 300 Ultra Mag is going to be useless. Your barrel's going to burn out. Or, with a 300 Win Mag, you have max 1,500 or 2,000 rounds. And then you're going to have to rechamber your barrel or rebarrel the whole rifle. And that would always scare me to buy a Magnum cartridge rifle, It would scare me away from buying Magnum rifles, because I would read this and I'd be like, okay, these guys must know what they're talking about, because they shoot all the time long range. They have probably more long range rifles than I do. And I would take it as gospel, basically, and it would kind of scare me away from buying a 300 Win Mag or 338 Lapua, because I would read what these people say and I would be like, well, why would I want to buy a rifle that only has 1,000 rounds or 2,000 rounds of life in it, you know, especially as a new shooter. You're going to be shooting a whole lot more than somebody who's been shooting long range for 10 years or whatever, you know, because you're learning, so you're going to be making a lot more mistakes, you know, learning the wind and things like that, you know, figuring out your hand loads. So you're going to shoot like 2 to 3 times as many rounds as somebody that's been shooting long range a while. So that kind of scared me away, you know, from buying a 300 Win Mag. And now I look back and I think, like, how stupid are these people, you know? They're doing a huge disservice to new shooters that want to get into long range. And they make people think that, you know, you need to have a 6.5 Creedmoor, or you need to have a 308 or some kind of lower pressure cartridge, you know, that's not going to burn your barrel out, so you can shoot, you know, thousands and thousands of rounds without having to rebarrel your rifle. And I'm here to tell you guys that all of that is BS, okay? So this rifle right here, this is my Ruger M77 Hawkeye Alaskan, okay? And I probably have at least 1,000 rounds through this rifle with this barrel on, okay? And my groups are insanely tight, okay? I actually just hit a 1-inch group at 1,000 yards, okay? Yes, I'll say that again. I just hit a 1-inch group at 1,000 yards with this factory rifle, okay? And some cheap Federal Power Shocks, all right? And I have over 1,000 rounds down the tube, okay? And according to all these experts out there, all these, you know, internet experts that say that, you know, 1,000 rounds and your rifle's kaput, you know, you need to rebarrel. I'm having the best groups right now, okay? My rifle is grouping the best, you know, and I don't know exactly how many rounds I've put through this barrel. I will say probably at least 1,000, if not more, maybe 1,500. And according to a lot of these so-called experts, my barrel should already be due for a change, okay? And so I just want to kind of share this information with you guys because, you know, you have to really do your own research. You can't just go on these forums or watch a YouTube video and take it as gospel, because, you know, you just don't know who these people are when they're telling you these things, okay? What are their credentials? What is their experience? Under what circumstances, what conditions were they shooting those rifles for them to say that, you know, they burn out after 1,000 rounds? You know, for example, if you're somebody that does a lot of rapid firing, you know, of course your barrel's going to burn out quick, okay? If you're at the range and you're shooting one of these 300 Win Mags or 338 Lapua, and you're doing, you know, rapid fire, you know, 5-10 rounds at a time with like no break in between, then yeah, of course you're going to burn out your barrel pretty quick. But the way that I shoot is I shoot no more than 3 rounds in one string, and I'll actually even limit it to like 2 rounds per string if I can. If I'm just target shooting, you know, I'm just shooting paper, I'll limit my strings to just 2-shot strings. And after I shoot 2 rounds, I'll let the barrel cool completely to the touch, okay? So it'll sit for 15 minutes or even longer if it's, you know, summertime. And that's how I shoot this rifle. And, you know, I have, like I said, over 1,000 rounds through this barrel, if not more, 1,500 rounds, maybe more, I don't know. I can tell you I have at least 1,000 rounds through this rifle. And no issues with accuracy. In fact, I'm getting some of my best groups now with this rifle. Okay, like I said, a 1-inch group at 1,000 yards. And I'm going to actually post a video of my shooting session when I hit that 1-inch group at 1,000 yards. Okay, so don't listen to all these negative people out there, you know. If I listened to those people, I would have never got this rifle. I would have said, you know what, it's too much power, it's a little bit overboard, after 1,000 rounds, I'm going to have to rebarrel it. I might as well just go with something like a 6.5 or 308, something lower pressure, so I can get 10,000 rounds or 5,000 rounds. And I'm just so happy that I got this rifle. I mean, this rifle is excellent. And for hunting, I mean, it beats a 308 or a 6.5 Creedmoor pretty much any day of the week. It's much more powerful, much more energy at long range. So, don't get intimidated by all these people on the internet, all these, experts on the forums. Barrel life estimates, in my opinion, are BS, because it really depends on how you shoot your rifle, how you take care of your rifle, how hot of loads are you shooting, And I will say that I would say 90% or more of the rounds I put through this rifle are hot loads, were hot loads, okay? I always shoot hot loads. I don't shoot low or medium power loads. I shoot full power 300 Win Mag loads, okay? There's just no point in shooting, low or medium power loads. I only do that if, I'm just plinking or something like that. It doesn't make sense to shoot low to medium power loads in 300 Win Mag. So, over 1,000 high pressure, high power loads through this barrel and no problems whatsoever. No, 3-inch groups or anything crazy like that. 3-inch groups at 100 yards, which would be a 3 MOA group, because that's what people would say, on those forums. I just recently rechambered one of my other 300 Win Mags for 300 Remington Ultra Mag. And boy, oh boy, all the people on those forums would absolutely rip apart the Ultra Mags. They would say, oh, don't get an Ultra Mag because your barrel life is only going to be 1,000 rounds, if not 800 rounds. And I just don't understand, where do they get that number from? Is it just something they pull out of their ass? And I can't wait to, see how many rounds I get with my 300 but I have no doubt that I'll easily be able to reach 1,000 rounds or 2,000, maybe even 3,000 rounds, because the way I shoot, I let the barrel cool. I don't do any crazy rapid fire strings, and I clean the barrel properly. I don't use abrasive cleaners. A lot of people that don't know what they're doing, they use solvents that are too strong and too harsh, and that will damage the metal in your bore, okay? So I use all natural solvents, okay? So they're not very aggressive and they're not damaging the bore, okay? Like stuff like gun scrubber and things like that. A lot of the copper solvents are extremely aggressive, okay? And I highly recommend not using them, okay? You don't need to scrub the copper out of your bore every single time you clean your rifle, okay? And it's actually detrimental to accuracy when you scrub all the copper out, because that copper, that little bit of copper in your bore, actually smooths out all the imperfections of the rifling, and you'll actually shoot better when you have a good layer of copper fouling, okay? Now, obviously, if you've never removed the copper in your bore after hundreds of rounds, then of course that's going to be detrimental. But you don't need to use copper solvents every time you clean your rifle, okay? You should only use a copper solvent, maybe once a year, okay? That's typically what I do, once a year, maybe every 500 rounds, okay? Or even every 200 rounds if you want to be a little more, if you're a little more worried about it. Because almost every solvent will take some copper out anyway. So every time you clean, you're going to take a little bit of copper away anyway. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Just wanted to share my thoughts about that. If you're thinking about getting a 300 Win Mag or a PRC or, a Remington Ultra Mag or Remington Mag or a Lapua, any of those Magnum cartridges that are meant for long range shooting, don't hesitate because of what someone said on a forum about them, okay? And there's all kinds of BS that people say about 300 Win Mag. Don't get me started with that. I could make several videos on that. You know, people say that the 300 Win Mag is antiquated, it's old, it has the belt that's useless. Yeah, of course, if you're nitpicking every little thing, yeah, of course, you know. Do you need that belt there? No. But is it always about perfection and everything having to be 100% perfect and ultra high ballistics coefficients and crazy high velocities? Not necessarily, okay? You know, buffalo were killed with slow moving bullets, you know. They didn't have cut rifle barrels back in the day, and they were killing buffalo hundreds of yards away with, you know, 45 70s with black powder. So, you know, don't take what people say as gospel all the time. Do your own research and don't be afraid to take a chance on something, you know. And I highly recommend the 300 Win Mag. Highly recommend all the 30 caliber magnums, or, you know, similar calibers like 7mm. They're excellent cartridges. They have a lot of power at long ranges, at practical long ranges. You know, up to 1,000 yards to me is the most practical max distance that you're ever going to really need to shoot, either as a hunter or, you know, if there's a Mad Max situation. But that's pretty much it, guys. You know, barrel life estimates, in my opinion, are BS. You know, people pull these numbers out of their ass. A lot of them just have a bias against particular cartridges. They hate Magnum cartridges for whatever reason. They might be a 6.5 Creedmoor guy, and they're talking trash about, you know, the 300 Win Mag, or they're talking trash about, you know, 338 Lapua, just to try to, you know, put down the cartridge and scare people away from getting involved with them. But it's been a very rewarding experience owning this rifle. I've learned so much about myself, you know, and I've really grown my skills tremendously with this rifle. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.